How many lives have been wasted waiting for someone else to notice their worth? How many women have dimmed their light, hoping that someone, someday, would recognize the brilliance they already carry within? The tragedy is not that others fail to see us. The tragedy is that we fail to see ourselves. We stand at the door of life, knocking with trembling hands, as if permission to be loved must come from someone else's lips. But the truth is clear. No one can grant you what heaven already placed within you. The world will try to convince you that value is earned by how much you are desired, how quickly someone answers your calls, how intensely another praises your beauty. But these are fleeting shadows, echoes of approval that vanish like mist when the morning sun rises. Real worth does not come from being chosen by another. It comes from choosing yourself in the quiet of your soul. When no one is watching, when the applause has faded, when you stand alone with the weight of your reflection, think about it. What happens when you live for their validation? You become a prisoner. You begin to bend your voice, soften your convictions, compromise your standards just to fit the image of who you think they want you to be. That is not love. That is bondage. Love was never meant to strip you of your identity. It was meant to strengthen it. When you choose yourself first, you anchor your soul to something unshakable. You declare, "I am worthy," not because you say so, but because eternity stamped it into my being before you ever looked my way. There is a divine order here. Before you can receive love and truth, you must know what love feels like within your own chest. If you do not honor yourself, you will confuse abuse for passion, control for protection, and manipulation for affection. You will keep drinking from poisoned wells, wondering why your soul still thirsts. Choosing yourself is not selfish shit, is sacred. It is aligning your heart with the truth that you are already complete, already enough, already radiant with purpose. Consider the garden. A tree does not beg for sunlight, nor does it plead for water. It simply grows, stretching its roots deep into the earth, reaching upward with confidence because it knows the source that sustains it. In the same way, you are sustained by the fleeting attention of another human being, but by the living breath that spoke you into existence. To forget this is to forget who you are. To remember it is to step into unshakable freedom. Some of you have spent decades waiting for someone else's love to make you whole. But hear this, the waiting is over. You do not need to be chosen because you already were. Long before rejection wounded you, before betrayal scarred you, before loneliness whispered its lies, a greater love claimed you. And when you finally choose yourself, you align with that eternal truth. That is when relationships transform, not because you are desperate to be loved, but because you overflow with a love that cannot be contained. This mindset shift will shatter your chains. It will silence the voice of self-doubt that told you you're not enough. It will break the cycle of shrinking yourself just to fit inside the fragile container of someone else's expectations. When you choose yourself, you rise. And when you rise, you give permission for others to rise with you. That is the beauty of true love. It is not dependency, but mutual strength. Not emptiness seeking to be filled, but wholeness overflowing into another life. So stop waiting for the call that may never come, the hand that may never reach, the words that may never be spoken. Stand now in the authority of your worth. Walk in the confidence of one who has already been chosen by something greater than human approval. And let every relationship that enters your life be measured not by how well it fills your emptiness, but by how much it honors the fullness already within you. Because here is the eternal truth. Love is not about being chosen. It is about choosing yourself first. And until you do, every other choice will be hollow. But the moment you do, you step into a freedom no one can take away. So many relationships falter. Not because two people stopped loving one another, but because they stopped telling each other the truth. They covered their hearts with silence, hoping to protect the peace. But in that silence, the bond began to wither. Peace without truth is not peace. It is a fragile illusion, waiting to shatter with the weight of unspoken pain. Think about it. How many times have you bitten your tongue, telling yourself it's not worth the argument? How many times have you smiled while your heart ached, afraid that speaking your truth would push someone away. And yet in hiding what is real, you lose the very intimacy you long for. Love cannot survive in shadows. It suffocates when honesty is withheld. The world teaches us that comfort is the goal, that if we can just keep things easy, if we can just avoid conflict, everything will be fine. But deep down, you know the cost. You feel the weight of words unsaid, the tension of secrets buried, and you realize comfort without truth is a slow poison. It keeps you together outwardly, but inwardly, it tears you apart. Truth, though, is not cruel. Truth is a surgeon's hand at cuts, yes, but only to heal. It reveals the sickness so that wholeness can come. A relationship rooted in truth may shake under the weight of confession. It may tremble when honesty breaks through. But what survives will be real, unshakable, and eternal. Consider the refining fire. Gold is never purified by comfort. It is purified by heat, by pressure, by the intensity of what seems unbearable. So it is with love. The bond grows strong not when we avoid the fire, but when we endure it together. Truth is that fire. It burns away pretense. It exposes weakness. It tests commitment. And yet when two hearts stand in truth, they emerge purer, stronger, and more radiant than before. Some of you have been living in relationships where silence feels safer than honesty. You've convinced yourself, if I speak what I feel, I might lose them. But hear this. If your relationship cannot survive the truth, it was never built to last. And if it can survive the truth, then you will discover a love deeper than anything comfort alone could provide. Truth does not destroy love, it reveals whether love was ever real. When you stop hiding, when you bring your whole self into the light, you give the other person a choice. They can reject you, or they can embrace you. But at least then, the love you share is not based on a mask. It is based on reality. Imagine standing before someone with nothing concealed, nothing edited, nothing hidden. No disguises, no pretending, no false smiles. Just you, raw, unfiltered, whole. That is terrifying, yes? But it is also liberating. Because in that moment, if they still choose you, you know the bond is real. And if they don't, you know the truth has set you free. Truth is not the enemy of love, is the foundation of it. Desire may fade, passion may cool, circumstances may change, but a love rooted in truth can withstand storms. It does not crumble under pressure because it has nothing to hide. And so the call is this: stop protecting comfort at the cost of honesty. Stop pretending silence will heal what only truth can restore. Begin to speak with courage, not to wound, but to set free. For every hidden wound festers in darkness, but when exposed to light, healing begins. Let this sink deep into your soul. A bond built on lies will eventually collapse, no matter how carefully you guard it. But a bond built on truth will endure because it is anchored in something eternal. Do not fear the shaking that truth brings. Fear instead the comfort that lulls you into emptiness. Because one day, when the storms come, and they always come, it is truth, not comfort, that will hold you together. And when the last illusion falls away, you will see clearly. Only what is true can last, and only in truth can love be called love. At first, those words sting. They challenge everything you've been taught about love, because the world has fed you this idea that to need someone is to prove your devotion, that dependence is the highest expression of care. But the truth is deeper, sharper, and far more liberating. Need is not love. Need is fear disguised as affection. And fear as a thief will rob you of freedom, of dignity, of joy, and eventually, the very person you cling to. Look closely at what happens when need takes root in the soul. You begin to bend your will around theirs. You silence your voice so theirs can be louder. You shrink your desires so theirs can be fulfilled. And all the while, a part of you is dying quietly inside. You tell yourself this is sacrifice, this is loyalty, this is love. But it is not. It is bondage. It is the slow erosion of the self, and no relationship can stand on the foundation of one person disappearing to keep the other comfortable. True love is not chains. it is wings. It does not suffocate, it gives breath. It does not consume identity, it celebrates it. And yet, when you live in need, you are not celebrating the bond. You are clutching it with trembling hands, terrified it will slip away. That terror becomes control. That fear becomes manipulation, even if you do not intend it. You begin to make choices not out of freedom, but out of desperation. And desperation is the soil where resentment grows. But here's the deeper revelation. You were never created to survive on another human's love. You were never designed to find your wholeness in someone else's approval. Yes, companionship is sacred. Yes, partnership is powerful. But the foundation of your worth cannot rest on whether another stays or leaves. When it does, you will live enslaved to their presence and destroyed by their absence. And that is not love, that is idolatry. There is a higher order, divine rhythm, that reveals the truth. Only two whole people can walk in the fullness of love. Half-hearts cannot complete each other. They only wound one another more deeply. Love is not two broken souls leaning on each other for survival. It is two restored souls walking side by side, strong enough to stand alone, yet choosing to stand together. That is why needing someone is the fastest way to lose them, because no soul was created to be another's savior. No human being was meant to carry the unbearable weight of completing someone else. Think of the vine and the branches. Life flows from the source, not from the branch beside you. When you try to draw life from another branch, you both wither. But when you draw life from the eternal source you thrive on, your relationships thrive with you. Need dries the soul, but alignment with truth brings abundance. This is not a call to coldness. This is not a rejection of intimacy. This is a call to holy strength. It is a call to rise into the truth that you are already whole, already loved, already chosen before anyone else ever touched your hand. When you stand in that identity, love becomes freedom. You no longer clutch desperately, afraid of loss, because your soul is not anchored in another's choice. It is anchored in something unshakable. And here's the paradox. When you no longer need them to complete you, your love for them becomes purer. It is not rooted in desperation, but in abundance. You love not because you are empty, but because you are full. You give not because you are starving, but because you overflow. And that kind of love, steady, fearless, whole, is the only kind that endures. So ask yourself with trembling honesty, is your relationship built on need or on choice? Are you clinging out of fear or standing together in freedom? Because until you answer this, you will remain bound to cycles of disappointment. Always fearing the day when the one you lean on can no longer hold you up. Do not mistake need for devotion. Do not confuse desperation with love. The deepest bond will never come from clutching it, will come from releasing, from standing firm in who you are and choosing another not because you must, but because you desire. And so the call is clear. Release your grip. Stop demanding another soul complete what was already made whole in you. Stand in the fullness of your worth and let your relationships be built not on chains of need, but on the strength of freedom. For when love is no longer a desperate need, it becomes the highest gift, and in that freedom, what is true will remain. The world has glorified desire, painted it as the fire that sustains love. But anyone who has lived long enough knows this truth. Desire is a spark, bright and consuming for a moment, but sparks fade. They flash, they dazzle, and then they die down into ashes, unless there is something deeper to keep the flame alive. Respect is that deeper foundation. Respect is the wood, the substance, the steady fuel that keeps the fire burning when the winds of time blow strong. Without respect, passion turns to smoke. Without respect, even love itself becomes hollow. Respect is not just courtesy, yet is recognition of worth. It is the soul saying to another soul, I see you as valuable. I honor the image within you. I will not diminish, belittle, or dishonor what is sacred in you. When respect is present, love is safe. When respect is absent, love becomes dangerous. Because where there is no respect, every act of passion becomes a lie. Every word of affection, an empty performance. Too many relationships crumble, not because the attraction was lost, but because respect was never established. What good is beauty if there is no honor? What good is passion if there is no trust? What good is companionship if one heart feels unseen, unvalued, unheard? Respect is the soil in which love grows. Without it, the roots cannot hold. The plant will wither no matter how much sun or water it receives. Think about how fragile desire really is. Bodies change. Time leaves its mark. Energy shifts. What seemed irresistible in one season may fade in another. If all you built upon was desire, then your foundation is sand, and the storm will sweep it away. But respect endures. Respect looks at a partner and says, even as the years change, I will honor your essence. Even as strength gives way to weakness, I will value your spirit. Even as beauty shifts, I will recognize your worth. That is the bond that time cannot break. Respect also demands accountability. You cannot claim to love someone you refuse to respect. You cannot dishonor their voice, ignore their boundaries, disregard their needs, and still call it love. Love without respect is deception. It pretends to care, but at its root it is selfishness wearing a mask. Here lies the urgency. If you do not demand respect, you will eventually lose even desire. For desire cannot thrive where dishonor resides. You may try to excuse it, telling yourself, at least they love me, even if they don't listen, even if they don't honor me. But deep inside, you know, it is not love if it does not respect. And the longer you tolerate it, the deeper the wound becomes, till you no longer recognize yourself in the mirror. Respect is also the reflection of how you view yourself. The level of respect you require from others reveals the value you place upon your own soul. If you see yourself as ordinary, you will accept ordinary treatment. If you see yourself as sacred, you will not allow yourself to be trampled by careless hands. Respect begins within and flows outward. Do not be deceived. Respect is not earned through perfection. It is not reserved only for those who meet every demand or fulfill every expectation. Respect is a posture of the heart that recognizes the divine imprint within another human being. When both carry this awareness, the bond is unshakable. They may stumble, they may disagree, they may even wound each other, but respect becomes the guardrail that prevents the fall from becoming final. Some of you have mistaken fleeting desire for lasting love. You have given your heart away to passion that had no honor, and now you wonder why it left you empty. But hear this, it is not too late. You can choose again. You can raise the standard. You can decide today that you will no longer accept love without respect. Passion without honor, closeness without dignity. Respect lasts longer than desire because it is eternal. Passion is for a season, but respect carries into eternity. When all else fades, when beauty slips, when strength diminishes, respect remains as the testimony of true love. So let this word pierce your heart. Do not settle for desire without respect. Do not build on sparks that cannot endure the storm. Choose the foundation that lasts. Choose the bond that time cannot break, because when respect is present, love is safe, love is pure, and love will endure long after desire has faded into memory. This is not a gentle truth. It is a piercing one. For too long, many have mistaken endurance for strength, silence for peace, and compromise for love. But hear this clearly. Every time you allow dishonor to stand unchecked, every time you accept half-hearted devotion as if it were enough, every time you swallow disrespect just to keep the relationship alive, you are writing a contract with your own pain. What you tolerate becomes the measure of what others believe you deserve. The weight of this revelation is heavy because it requires us to stop pointing outward and begin looking inward. It is easy to say they mistreated me, they betrayed me, they didn't value me. And while all of this may be true, there is a deeper question. Why did you stay where you were not honored? Why did you allow yourself to drink from a well that left you empty? Responsibility does not mean guilt, it means authority. It means recognizing that you have the power to decide what enters your life and what must be shut out. Think of the ancient walls of a city. Their strength determined whether enemies could plunder or whether citizens could dwell in safety. A broken gate was an open invitation for destruction. In the same way, your boundaries are the gates of your heart. If you refuse to guard them, do not be surprised when enemies of peace, dignity, and love rush in. To tolerate what diminishes you is to lay down your weapons and surrender your walls. And here's the deception of the natural world. People will tell you, be patient. Endure it. Love covers all things. Yes, love covers, but love does not condone abuse. Love does not justify betrayal. Love does not normalize dishonor. True love, the kind rooted in eternal truth, requires accountability. Without it, love ceases to be love and becomes manipulation dressed in holy clothing. There is an urgency here. Too many souls are shackled, not because their chains were forced upon them, but because they chose to wear them. Chains of fear, fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of not being chosen again. Chains of shame believing that mistreatment is all they deserve. Chains of false hope thinking, if I just endure a little longer, maybe they will change. But your responsibility is not to fix another person's heart. Your responsibility is to guard your own. Do not mistake responsibility for harshness. This is a call to awakening. When you begin to raise the standard of love in your life, everything changes. You no longer beg for crumbs when you were meant to sit at a feast. You no longer accept the counterfeit when the genuine has been promised. You no longer cling to brokenness when healing is available. Consider this: every time you accept less than you deserve, you silence the truth of who you are. But when you draw the line and say, no more, heaven itself bears witness. The earth responds. Creation honors those who honor themselves. It is not arrogance, it is alignment. You were not created to be trampled underfoot. You were not designed to be a vessel for constant pain. You were fashioned for dignity, for wholeness, for love that does not wound. Some of you have been praying for transformation in your relationships, asking for change, pleading for restoration. But perhaps the answer has been waiting on your decision. Perhaps the shift will not come until you stop tolerating what contradicts your worth. Perhaps the miracle is already prepared, but it requires you to step out of the cycle that has been draining your soul. The power is in your hands. Not in controlling another's actions, not in forcing another's affection, but in deciding what you will no longer permit. This is where freedom begins, not in their apology, not in their change, but in your courage to choose differently. Let this sink deeply. To tolerate dishonor is to agree with it. To accept brokenness as normal is to keep yourself bound. But when you rise and say, no more, you shift the atmosphere. You align your life with eternal truth. You open the door for relationships that reflect respect, honor, and true love. Do not delay this awakening. Do not postpone your freedom. The love you tolerate will shape the life you live. And until you take responsibility for what you allow, you will remain bound to what was never meant for you. But when you rise, when you draw the line, when you refuse to accept anything less than the love that honors your soul, you will discover the truth that changes everything. You were never meant to endure chains. You were meant to walk free.